I don't really do intros or anything like that.
Sure.
Well, I don't really have a usual anything. Like I said, this is really only the second conversation I've had. The first one was with T Jump, and
Mm,
I was sort of laser focused on what I wanted to get out of him.
yeah.
And I mean, that was like right off the bat. He basically answered my question. Um, and then there was just so many like connected questions. Like I think someone even commented, it was like parkour through seemingly random topics. And it was incredibly apt. But I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
like as soon as he would say one thing, he would sort of elaborate, and it's like, oh, well, now there's a piece of that I want to, let's explore that, expand.
Yeah.
Just it was like in the Blade Runner movie, like constantly zooming in and enhancing on different areas of the picture. It's like, oh man, I could
Yeah.
spend all
Right.
day.
Yeah. I like those stream of consciousness types of conversations as well. They're pretty good because you can actually dig deeper into how people think and why they think what they think. And instead of just assuming what they think, it's one of the faults I've found being online in terms of the debate arena, where people may simply assume to know where you're coming from.
Mhm.
It's something I'm really careful about myself as well, trying to ask people, so what do you think? What do you believe, and how and why? And you really have to be very specific as well in those sorts of questions.
Sure. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's like the most honest thing you can do to meet someone where they're
Yeah.
at and actually talk about that position and what that could mean. And maybe that can better inform your position, your thoughts about the subject. I think
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
worst when someone basically imposes their idea of what your belief is on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've even had to catch myself. All of a sudden, I'm defending this position that, wait, I don't actually believe this, but I'm
Yeah.
sitting here on the
Yeah.
defensive and I'm trying to defend it anyway. But I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe I'm
Sure.
just contrarian like that.
I think you have to be in some aspects, because that way you can understand both sides. You can still man both sides and come from it from a more solid foundation rather than assuming. I've had a few instances where people have, even after talking to them and explaining my position, they've come back on Twitter, which is a real dumpster fire for communication. It's terrible. I don't know what it is. I think it's the limited characters that turn people into assholes. But you tend to, but even then, they will simply say, "Oh, you believe," for example, something came from nothing. The old argument of that, and personally, I don't really believe that. So I've expressed that a few times, and it seems they don't really catch on to it. They really want to hold on to this notion of what everyone believes. It's that tarring the brush type of thing.
Yeah. Well, it makes it easier
Yeah,
to just like assume,
exactly.
like,
It
no,
does.
well,
It does.
if you don't believe in the God, then you must believe in the coming from nothing thing. It's like, well, I never said
Yeah.
that. You never asked
Yeah,
me what I
that's
thought.
well, well, this is even after they've asked me my position. I've explained it, and then a week later they've come back with that, and to me directly, and I've said, no, 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 I explained myself before. Did you listen? And so
Yeah,
that sort of puts you a little bit on the back foot. But hey, you've got to get over it. These are talking points. That's all they are.
fair enough. But I mean, that's actually a big question that I had for you. So I've been running into this, I'd say more recently, that kind of thing where someone just kind of puts this false impression on me, makes me feel like crap. It makes me feel like
Yeah.
maybe it's a more of a reflection of them. They weren't listening, or maybe they're not being careful or something like that. Would you
Mm,
come back and say, uh, I don't know, would you be dismissive? Would you be like, all right, well, if you're not gonna like come to the table as an honest interlocutor, then why are we having this conversation? My time is better spent somewhere else. Or would you fight that battle? Would you like take the time to clarify, reiterate? What would you do?
yeah. Yeah, I take the time. I give people at least a few goes. If they're going to be dishonest after, say, 4, 5, 6 attempts, really, I I'm getting older. I don't have the patience for it. But you know, conversely, if I was younger, I probably would have just dismissed them off the bat because I was so angry at them not listening to me. So I think with the intervening years, say from when I was maybe 20 to the age I'm now, 46, I've probably found that more forgiving aspect that, okay, maybe they misheard, let me try another way. Maybe they took it the wrong way. Maybe they were just having a bad day. I'm a little bit more forgiving with other people's positions rather than just trying to get what I want to say out. I'm a bit more forgiving that way. So I would give them a lot more leeway now. However, probably 6 or 7 would be the limit. If they're still going to misrepresent what I'm saying, then it's like, fine, okay, move on. You know,
well, that number may.
Yeah. Sorry. Yep.
Well, that number may change depending upon like who it is, right? Like if it's a family member or like someone you live with.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Well, maybe
yeah,
the number's infinity.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true, isn't it? Because you're invested. And yeah, but to someone online, I would probably give them half a dozen, and yeah, that would do it. But I don't block people. I simply mute conversations. If we're not getting anywhere, I'll just mute things. If they've been going for 2 weeks, I had a conversation with someone on Twitter back and forth for about 2 months, off and on. And I eventually invited him onto my channel. It was Ken Ami. His Twitter was very dismissive, very brutal. And I finally got him on my channel, and we had a really good 1:40 discussion about all sorts of things. And it was fine. The human aspect came through, and we've been talking on email ever since. So I think you really need to get past your issues, recognize their issues, and then after time, you might actually end up friends in some way. So, you've got to be a bit forgiving as well.
Yeah, certainly supports your assertion that Twitter is a bit of a dumpster fire.
Yes.
Since it promotes the I don't know, snippedness. Is that a word? Everybody
it's not a
has
bad
to
word.
be heard. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone has to be brutal and gotchas and I win, and yeah, I fall into the same trap every now and then, but it's really just to sort of cut things short sometimes. Sometimes I'm not into a long thread. I don't have the time. I'm married, 2 kids. I work full time. I'm studying a degree. I write novels. I've just got a lot going on. So
Wow.
I'm really not on Twitter a lot of times. It's really just a passing thing. I'll go on, see what's going on. If there's something that grabs me, I'll engage and see where it goes.
Okay. What kind of novels do you write?
I write crime fiction novels
nice.
set in Australia. It's about a private investigator who solves a few cases.
What time period?
Present time.
Okay.
Probably, to be lazy, I'd probably describe it as Jack Reacher meets with an Aussie flavor.
All right.
Put it that way. Yeah.
So like a modern Wild West. This is like my silly American view of what Australia is.
Yeah, in a way, more of a realistic character. So yeah, he's a divorced, single dad, private investigator. So gets into the gritty aspects of the underground and sex, money, and all that sort of thing. And yeah, it's fun.
Nice. Oh, that's fantastic. No, and it's great that you have hobbies and other things to focus on. That's so I got a girlfriend and she's got a couple of kids living under my roof. So I'm not going to call myself a father. I'm sort of, I don't know, acclimating. Maybe that's the right word.
Yeah.
Not that it's a struggle or anything like that, but it's a process.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's one thing that I hope the boys pursue. Something that they're passionate about, something that they care about, something other than Sonic the Hedgehog and Legend of Zelda.
That's right. It's all a phase. Yeah, that's the same with me. I've got 2 boys as well, so I hope they expand. with their hobbies. We're trying to be a bit political with them as well. Just explain politics and expose them to different beliefs and religions, and try to let them make up their own mind, which they have. My eldest has made up his own mind at the age of 14. He didn't believe anymore. My youngest still believes something is out there.
Okay. So, what age is your youngest?
So my eldest now is 16. My youngest is 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I love that approach. Exposure to everything, censor nothing.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah. Like. Yeah. I agree. I think, of course, there's limits based on the age range as well. Sure. You don't want to show them absolutely everything to a degree, but I think we're quite liberal, more than my parents ever were with me.
Oh, I think my parents call themselves conservatives for sure. Having said that, I did watch Aliens at the age of 5.
Yeah, I saw a lot of horror at that age as well.
It's still my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it's one that you go back to over and over. That's the mark of a good movie for me. The mark of a good movie is you can watch it over and over. These pretentious, over dramatized productions. You watch them once, you go, yeah, it's a good film, but you don't go back to it. It's too heavy. I watched a lot of war movies growing up, a lot of Chuck Norris, a lot of Charles Bronson. I watched Death Wish films when I was a kid, Clint Eastwood. I watched all these what people would consider now ultra violent right wing vigilante violence, and I loved it as a kid. I got to be honest, I loved it.
I still love them.
I mean, it's escapism. It's fun.
But in terms of ultra violence, I mean, it's kind of tamed by some comparison to some of the things.
Well, yeah. By a lot of standards you see now, the ultra violence back then really was fairly tame. It probably was more about the topics that it covered, the uncomfortable topics such as Death Wish. Are you allowed to take revenge for what happened to your family? It's those sort of uncomfortable topics, I think, that made it more edgy rather than the fact there was violence in the films. But yeah, very interesting anyway. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I mean, we could talk about cinema for quite a while, but like in terms of those social commentary kind of things, going back to straw manning people, that you even did a little clip on your channel. Is his name Barack Lurie? I'm butchering the pronunciation probably. But just straight out the gate, the assertion that atheists aren't moral people.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That's a ouch. Thanks, man.
It's a very it's a very anti-human proposition, isn't it?
Yeah. Not a lot of humanism there.
I think ironically, Godless Engineer did this same response to the same video the same week that I did. So it looked like we copied each other. But yeah, when that came out, as soon as that came out, it was like, wow, I have to do something about this. And again, you see this in online conversation a lot, where people say, well, how is killing bad in your view? All these crazy anti-human, essential foundational aspects of humanity are suddenly put up onto a table, and they say, well, how can you describe it's bad? And I can't do it on Twitter because it's going to it'll take years to write out why I consider it bad. There's empiricism. We know it's bad because of the exponential damage it does to not only that individual, but to everyone around them. It flows on. A good example I thought about recently was the example in, have you ever seen Breaking Bad? Going back to Breaking Bad, where we see the flow-on effect from, if you recall, he lets what's his name, Aaron, Jesse,
yeah,
his girlfriend Walter lets her die, and as a result of her dying, her father is mourning. Her father works at an air traffic terminal. He makes a mistake at the air traffic terminal because he's in mourning from his daughter. 2 planes crash over Albuquerque, and the debris falls onto Walter White's house. So that's why that's a really good example of, well, why is this bad? Why would you let this person die? Why is it bad? Well, it affects everything else, including yourself,
Sure.
potentially. It's a really dumbed down, without objective morals type of argument that I just find absolutely absurd.
Yeah. So I watched Breaking Bad. I kind of had to push myself to get through it. I guess I didn't find it to be the wonderful show that everyone else did.
Yeah.
But now that you just mentioned that, just how the one action trickled down into so many and came right back to him, kind of kicking myself that I missed that. Because that is actually pretty powerful, and that's something I don't know. Maybe I fell asleep for a few episodes or something.
It can be a slow burn. Yeah, it can be a slow burn. But that's one example that I've thought about ever since I saw that. I probably saw that about 7 or 8 years ago, but ever since then I thought, wow, that is a really good example of the repercussions and choices we make and how it affects others and our lives.
But using that example, let's say nothing bad did come back to Walter. Like, let's say the plane still crashed, people still died, and there was still this trickle down effect and bad spread. Would you agree that that's still, like, I mean, harm was done? That's bad, and we shouldn't do that. Even us being atheists, like however we would define that term, like, we would agree that, like, yeah, no, he shouldn't have done that. He should have done something else. He should have saved her.
Through action, he should have saved her life. Well, this is the thing, because it's the great unknown. We don't know what she may have done in her life. We don't know where she would have gone in her life. We don't know how she would have impacted others in her life. And it's really not for us to, via inaction, impact that. If the choice is there, to maybe put another little slightly altered spin on it, just say, for example, what was I going to say? It was an example of, so in that situation, the situation was, just in case no one knows what it was she was choking on her vomit. Basically, she was sick and she was on her back and she was choking from a drug overdose from memory. And so she was choking, and he was there. He could do something, either through inaction, he could just let her die, which that's the choice he makes, and she dies, or through action, he could have saved her life. Just to break it down. So basically, if we look at that from an objective standpoint, or try to, I really don't think anyone stands there and turns to a moral book or a holy book or a guideline and says, okay, what does God say about this? Right. I think someone would either do something, or in his situation, because of the consequences around his choice, do nothing. So that's where I find it a little bizarre that people say, well, what would you do? Well, I wouldn't turn to a book to decide. In my situation, I would try and do something. The fact that Walter White doesn't do anything in that situation is because of the situation around it. It was better for her to be out of his life. It was a purely selfish, probably the most selfish thing he does at that point of his life is let this person die for his benefit.
Sure. Well, as the series goes on, go ahead. Sorry,
just to finish the thought, which ultimately doesn't benefit him at all. It actually goes against him in the end. So you sort of think, well, I can do something. I'll do something. It can only benefit in some way.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the whole theme of the show, right? I mean, he's constantly exploring new levels of bad. And it's always, it's like the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Like it's always like he's trying to make some end meet. And it's the bar keeps lowering, like how low he's willing to go to try and meet that end. And then,
yeah. And it's only in the end that's justified in his mind. He's not actually doing it for his family at all. He's really just doing it for himself and his own ego, which he confesses to multiple. I'm not sure if you've seen all of it, but
I haven't seen the movie though.
Okay.
Jesse right after.
El Camino. It's quite good.
Okay.
I don't think you're missing anything if you don't see it. But if you do see it, it is enjoyable.
Fair enough.
It pays fan service.
You said something interesting. If someone's in a situation, you don't think someone will stop and think, well, what does God say about this? What's actually written in my holy book? Speaking from personal experience, I did martial arts for quite a while. And right out of college, I was living in Oklahoma, and I found this dojo where it had connections to one I had trained at when I was younger. I really liked the dude. He was like a 9th degree straight from Korea, like real old school. It's like, yeah, this is what I want, like traditional style, like not the MMA, not the I just wanted like that pure traditional kind of thing. And I really got sucked in hard because it became very cultish. And that's a very unkind word to use. But it was very much a groupthink kind of thing. And I would find myself in situations where I would think, well, what would my grandmaster do?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I mean, ideally, like, well, this seems cut and dry. Obviously, this is what I would do in these situations. But whenever I would encounter a situation where, well, I don't know, I have to stop and really consider this. And then like the elements of like, well, the group think that comes in there, and like, well, if I can't just decide on my own, I have this other layer I can introduce into the decision-making process. And then it becomes an informer. So to that extent, it scares me if someone uses a religious text that I find abhorrent.
Because in the situation, that's right. Because in the situation of, say, a terminal pregnancy or something like that, then you've got someone saying, "Well, no, the moral thing to do is a pro-life decision based on these morals," whereas the medical consensus says otherwise. So that's where it's a good point you raised there. What I was going to say was, if your master had simply positive aspects, then sure, you can rely on that as a mentor, as a positive mentor, positive role model in your life. Then sure, if it's a positive decision, then for sure you can use that. You can turn to that. It gets murky when you're talking about other aspects of life, like I say, with
well, that's fair.
With pro-life, pro-choice decisions. How do you, which moral basis do you turn to? Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that.
Big gray. Yeah.
Because like over time, I would think back. I would just think back on the group think idea, and I would just and think of what was going through my head, and it would just be so cringe. I would think about what I was thinking, and it's like, God, you young idiot.
Can you remember one of those?
What, like one of the things?
Yeah.
I remember him being because he's old school, highest level achieved in the art, super confident in his abilities kind of thing. If there was ever like a situation where, okay, this might become physical or something like that, then basically it would like fuel his tendency to be confrontational. And it's just years of people knowing who he is and what he's capable of, that like so many people's reactions would be like, yeah, I don't want to tussle with this guy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But that's not what other people's viewpoints are going to be of me. So if I try and walk that walk, like I'm just setting myself up for I'm not going to call myself a pacifist, but I've never been involved in like a bar fight. I've always been able to de-escalate.
Yeah. And you reckon Is it safe to say you recognize that now easier compared to at the time? In retrospect is what I'm saying. In retrospect, you look back and say, wow, why did I think that? You mentioned there were cringe elements to this sort of group think. Yeah.
Well, I certainly, I think my situational awareness has improved over time.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I'm much more likely to say, well, that's a weird thought that I had. Where do I think that came from?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And if it's well, I don't know, I saw my favorite cartoon character doing that. It's like, well, that's stupid. I'm not going to emulate that.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good ability to capture that thought and look at it from every single conceivable angle and see where it comes from. I think that's a really good skill to come into as you move through life. Yeah. It's definitely something. It's definitely like a muscle you need to exercise consistently. Yeah.
Especially situational awareness. I think that's something that I don't think people realize that's a thing that needs to be developed.
I know, because it's so easy just to do the first thing that comes naturally to you in any situation based on what you think is the right thing or wrong thing to do. I know it's a really interesting one that people don't stop and realize.
Yeah.
And why you have so many fights over Christmas with family members.
Do you often well, let me rephrase. Do you tend to have fights with family members?
No, not really. We have heated disagreements is probably the worst it gets.
That's natural. That happens. Like to everybody, really.
Yeah. But we move on. I think part of it is that I learned to back off, unfortunately, in some ways. And what I mean, unfortunately, is that I can see some of the damage that some thought processes are doing to those close to me. And I don't quite have the skill set to bring them around. It's taken some years to get them to more positive thought processes. It's taken a long time. I just feel that I wish, not so much wish, but I'm working towards a way to better epistemology. I've been learning that over the last year, just to get them to think about why they think what they think. So I'm making a little bit of progress, which is really good. But then this is, say, my stepfather and my mother, they do tend to fall into some forms of conspiracy thinking. I've noticed it become more so with my mother on Facebook now. She's going into those rabbit holes a little bit. Yeah. So
when you started speaking about it, I thought for sure you might have been talking about your boys.
Okay. No, I'm okay with them. They're actually quite mature for their age.
Nice.
I'm pretty proud of them. They've come a long way. No, it's more the generation above me rather than the generation below. I think the generation below seem to be fairly okay with getting the facts and seeing past the bullshit. I think the generation above and mine tend to love the rabbit holes. They love latching onto those rabbit holes and going into them. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because they haven't been taught how to research properly. They don't know which sources are the good sources. They don't know how to look around those issues. I don't know if they I don't know if they know what tools to equip themselves with online. I don't know what it is. They're lazy. I don't know.
Could be all those things. I think Joe Rogan says conspiracies are. I hope I'm not misquoting him. I think he called them like romantic or like very enticing, very attractive, because they're fun.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are, especially to young minds. I mean, I loved UFOs and conspiracies and JFK. I read so many JFK conspiracy books. I used to make my own posters of photocopied photos from the from the library of the Loch Ness Monster. I had a UFO poster, a Loch Ness Monster poster. I had a Bigfoot poster. I used to make up all these posters and put them up on my bedroom wall because I loved them. I just loved the ideas, the ghost imagery, ghost photos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went through a massive supernatural phase of the unexplained, and I had all those books, and then you gradually unpack them as you get older, and you realize there's no evidence for any of these. This is just one person. One person found this one footprint. You know, can you really believe it based on that? Well, you know, not really. You know, it slowly starts to unravel as you look at it. But you know, I still loved it. It was like a romance. I'm glad you said that word romance, because it really was like that. You really are seduced by these notions, you know, and yeah, good word for it.
It's kind of funny that talking about that reminds me a lot of Dan Aykroyd. Whenever I was since the new Ghostbusters movie came out, I was watching a few old interviews where he would go like on Johnny Carson, and he would just go into these spiels about like how he's got family history about this kind of. Dan Aykroyd always just came across as like just a weird dude when he talked about that kind of fun weird.
Yeah.
But it's like, wow, you are really deep into this.
He's really into it. Yeah. I think his father wrote a book about ghosts. Right? Yeah.
It was like a family lineage of being super into that.
Yeah. No spoilers. I haven't seen the Afterlife yet, so
fair enough. It's enjoyable. I don't think it's going to be like as infinitely rewatchable as like Aliens is, or the first or the first Ghostbusters.
Okay
But it's good.
There's a fair bit of fan service, I've heard, so that's good.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, good.
There was when you said that you tend to become less confrontational over time. You're more like, well, let me think about that. Not confrontational, giving people like another chance, like sitting down, like reclarifying like your positions on certain things. You said you are less apt to be dismissive.
True.
I thought that was interesting because I feel like my experience, like as I grow older, I'm more likely to be dismissive, but only because like I'm when I was younger, I think I had this like extremely naive idea that, they didn't understand what I said when I said this, so maybe I didn't say it right, so I'm going to try and say my position better. And I just had this idea that like, nope, I didn't do it enough, I can do it better. I didn't do it good enough, I can do it better. And now that I'm older, I think certainly back to the times where people have tried to reach me and I just wasn't connecting the dots or something like that. So I guess as I'm older, I feel like there may not be a good enough. I may not be able to express this point. Maybe they just can't meet me in the middle. Maybe I can't meet them where they're at, and I have to learn to. So like when I was younger, I think I was willing to go like infinite number of chances, no matter who it is. And now I'm like, no, there just isn't enough time in the day. Too many other things I could be doing.
Yeah, it depends on the context, doesn't it? Because there are things I'll just dismiss as absolute bullshit straight off the bat. If this is where a lot of theological claims come into it. If someone says, we have scientific proof that transubstantiation is real, I will say, bullshit, move on. because there is none. I know there's none. And this is the thing, when you say, okay, so it's bullshit, but if you can prove it, please show me. Link the citation, show me the study, show me the method. You said scientific proof. That means a scientific method was involved.
Oh
Show
yeah.
me the scientific method. And then I get a link for, the Luciano miracle, from 800 AD, which, or 600 AD, which, it's a sample of human blood. That's all it is at best. It's a sample of human blood. Great. Okay, it's human blood. How do you know it's Jesus's blood? How do you know it once was bread and is now human flesh? How do you know? Oh, well, we just have to believe that. I'm sorry, no, that's not scientific. That's not scientific in any way. So I'll call bullshit. So don't get me wrong. When something like that happens, I am dismissive, and I am far more dismissive of that now than I was when I was younger. So yeah, it depends on the context. If someone is just saying absolute crap, then yeah, I will dismiss it.
So this actually leads me to something that I wanted to ask you about. I think we're going to agree whenever it comes to supernatural claims, we're going to be super skeptical just because there's never been anything substantiated there. But what about something that's scientific? For instance, global warming, like where it's basically a scientific argument. Did you find yourself being skeptical of that right off the bat? Are you still skeptical? Do you accept the
I accept the consensus that the Earth is being impacted by human
anthropogenic
endeavor. So yeah. So I do. I go with the consensus, and I have to say that yes, anything they've presented, I can look at and see that yes, it's making sense. I can look at the Great Barrier Reef and say yes, something is going on there. I can see. I generally go with the consensus, even though I'm not a scientist. But I know scientists myself, and they obviously are qualified to look into things higher than me. So I can. It's not so much an appeal to authority. It's more that I'm living through a time where for example, let me give you a real world example. My father-in-law is a bit of a skeptic with global warming. He says it's just a cycle. We've been through this before. Okay. And then we stop him and say, when do you remember it being this hot in April where we live? And he goes, I can't really remember in my life. He's 75. He can't remember a time in his life when it was this hot. Again, memory's faulty. So you have to look at the stats. And sure, when you look at the stats over the last 70 years, the weather hasn't been this hot in April where I live in that time. And you say, well, okay, so what does this mean? And so he has to reconsider and look at the facts. And that's where we say, well, okay, so if it's a cycle that you're saying, what's the length of the cycle? What are you basing this on? And then he's basing it on right-wing media and spin, right? So this is where you really have to analyze the facts yourself and come to a conclusion. And so, yeah, I'm generally in agreement with the consensus that something is going on.
So I agree completely. I don't think it's an appeal to authority if you appeal to the scientific consensus. The people who are credentialed in the area
true.
Actually have knowledge and the ability to understand that data, parse it out, draw meaning.
True. I think the appeal to authority is more when you're appealing to other authorities other than the science people, right? Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, but some people do that. They go outside the scientists.
Oh, when I was younger, I probably would have. Hey, what does my grandmaster think about global warming? All right, well, I'll throw his opinion into the ring.
yeah.
Nope, he trumps the scientists.
That's right. He's an authority, but not an authority in that regard. That's right.
But now, what if you knew a scientist who was well credentialed and knowledgeable in that area, and he absolutely went against the scientific consensus? How would you, like, let's say you had a good buddy who fits that description.
Sure. I would have to look and see how he reached his conclusions and then analyze that information for myself, possibly taking it to other sources, saying, okay, so how has he come to this conclusion and why? And if those sources, depending on how many it would take to convince me, say 10, 15, 20 other experts in the field, and if they all autonomously came to the same reasons why he came to the same conclusions, then I would have to say, look, these 20 other qualified people have come to the exact same reasons why you've reached this conclusion. It's like that thing where people will see Jesus in a tree, for example, and you say, okay, well, let me look at these. Let me go to these other people and see what they see, and they may see Brahma or Allah or someone else, right? And then you say, okay, well, these other people see something different, so we have to conclude that this is ambiguous. We don't know what it is. But if they're coming to their conclusions based on faulty premises and presuppositions, then you have to say, well, especially in the science area, if 20 other scientists come to the same reason, okay, so A plus B equals C, and you go back and say, well, you've come up with D, and they've all come up with C. I'm sorry, but I have to really go with what their consensus is, right? You have to sort of go that way.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, digging into it is some, but if it's like an area where I just don't have expertise, like if somebody's showing me that this actually has happened within, it was I was talking to Otangelo. I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh, Jesus.
Sounds like you do.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And he was showing me a 3D animation of how something in a cell, I think, worked. Like it's super microscopic. Obviously, it's like an extrapolation, and because it looked so clean and it worked so immaculately, and if any one part of that wasn't part of the equation, then the whole thing would fail. It's like, so as an engineer, they're like, so you have to accept that this must have been designed. It's like, no, I don't know anything about biology. You're showing me a very interesting, fascinating thing. You could probably teach me a lot about the subject, but I just don't know enough about this to be able to say, yep, you convinced me, it must be designed. There's no way I'm going to be able to make that leap. I don't know enough about this.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a very good point. A very good point. And I find this piggybacking on science really quite amusing, because it wasn't that long ago that no one knew about the cell. I think it was discovered about 1860, thereabouts. So all of a sudden, it was a tautology. It was adapted by these theologians that, oh, yes, that's what the Bible is talking about. The cell. We know this now. Now we know that it was talking about the cell. It all makes sense. But the day prior to that, and the thousands of years prior to that day, no one mentioned a cell. So this is another aspect where you say, hey, I'm not even an expert. I'm not an expert in this. But, the whole argument you're coming at now is well after the fact of scientists who have made this discovery, and you're just piggybacking on that now. You know, wow, look at this incredible cell and what it does. And it's like, okay, let's jump in the DeLorean and go back to 1850. And you're sitting there going, look at this bilge and spit in this person. You know, what, isn't this incredible? And you're like, no, it's just human guts. It doesn't, we don't know. It doesn't mean anything, right? But that's the type of argument they're doing. They're saying, oh, wow, look at this electricity. Electricity is mentioned in the Bible. Well, it's, I mean, how far does it go, right? I mean, how far does it go? Otangelo is simply just using, if no one went through the Enlightenment, you know, you can only imagine the type of arguments we'd be talking about now on the technology we have now. It'll be just mind-blowing, the type of arguments people are putting forward.
Is this basically post hoc rationalization?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would put it down to that.
Either that or
in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's probably more the sharpshooter than post hoc. Yeah.
I'm certainly familiar with the Kalam trying to claim credit for scientific claims. There's
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
either way, I mean, the reason why we accept the scientific explanations, the research and everything is because they show their work and it's
Yes.
repeatable.
Yes. Yes.
Which I
Amazing.
find to be the most compelling thing possible. Like if anyone can
Well,
knowledgeable in the area can repeat it, like with the intention of trying to debunk it. That's, I mean, basically the
yeah,
goal of science. That's the reason why these experiments are reproduced.
that's right. That's right. I mean, this is how everyone, believers, non-believers, live their life every day. Everyone lives empirically. Like you just had a drink. And in that drink, there are ingredients in that drink. Okay. It's made up of certain
Delicious
ingredients.
ingredients.
Delicious, beautiful ingredients, God-given ingredients. And so the thing is, you just had a drink empirically. Now, you didn't stop. Just say you were a Christian. You didn't stop and say, are these ingredients true and real? Does it really consist of these ingredients? How do I believe it's those ingredients? What are these ingredients? They may not even exist. You didn't do that. You just opened the lid and took a drink, right? And this is the thing that I find amazing as well. We all live empirically. We know that if we walk in front of if we step on the street, we could get killed. We know that. We don't sit there and ponder philosophically, perhaps these cars are just cars in a vat somewhere. No one lives like that, truly. We all live in the empirical world and empirically. So where was I going with this train of thought? If I go
I'll be
back,
honest, I'm not sure.
I think we were talking about, you touched on something there. Anyway, move on. That was my point.
Well, what if I were a solipsist? What if I didn't necessarily believe anyone else in this world existed? I do think my actions are still influenced and informed by the world around me, even if I
Sure.
hold
Yeah.
an absurd belief that I'm the only one that exists, and
Sure.
everything that I see, hear, sense, feel, touch, whatever, is only a machination in my mind, the brain in the vat, the I'm in the matrix, all the different thought experiments of that. It just, it smacks so much of the Christian assertion that we all borrow from the Judeo-Christian set of values. And even as an atheist, all we're doing is just denying the obvious, and we still live out our lives. I think Jordan Peterson says everyone basically lives out Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, it's written on our hearts. That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, the thing is, who do you know lives like a hard solipsist? Who do you know lives like they just drive, they get in their car and they drive at 200 miles an hour. If they smash and kill people, they don't care because they're just a brain. It's just themselves. No one else matters. Nothing else matters. They just burn the world. They take what they want from the shops because they don't have to pay for it. It's all in their minds. Does anyone live that way?
I don't think that way of living is conducive to supporting life. For instance, food. Why do I need to eat food? I'm just a brain in the vat, so I don't need to support a body. I'm not really a body, so why should I feed it? And how long will they last? 2 weeks?
That's right. That's right. And how do you explain Celine Dion? I mean, there's no way I could come up with those songs. There's no way I could come up with something so sucky. So sorry, Celine Dion fans, you're out there. But if that came from me, Jesus Christ, I don't know.
Well
I don't know
done.
how I could.
I really enjoy your songwriting under the moniker of Celine Dion.
Thank you, me. That's nice of me to say so.
Yeah, no, I can't say I know of anyone who actually lives out those ideals.
No one really does, do they? No one lives like a true nihilist in terms of, well, it's just me. I'm just going to do what I want. No one really does.
But that's just sort of like hijacking the. I wonder if that's. I feel like that's the best way to put it. It's basically just hijacking perceived virtues. Was it C.S. Lewis? C.S. Lewis was the one who wrote the Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe books, right?
Lewis was,
but he was
Lion,
a
Witch,
Christian.
Wardrobe.
I
Yes.
must be thinking of someone else. There's someone who is one of his famous quotes is the religion has basically co-opted morals. Or wow, I'm butchering this completely. It wasn't C.S. Lewis.
Where you're coming from? Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that, I mean, just going right back to the beginning, the idea that Barack Lurie thinks that atheists are immoral. Well, not immoral people, people without morals.
Without morals, yeah.
Which is just obnoxious.
Obnoxious and just disgusting. It's just such a douchey thing to say. I think that's what I called my video, actually. Douchey. Yeah,
I remember you using that word.
Douchey. Yeah, I thought it was absolutely douchey.
Because obviously we don't see that. I mean, generally the people we encounter on a day-to-day, if you bump into someone in the grocery store, oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. I mean,
yeah.
We don't immediately assume, well, they must be a Christian. They said they were sorry.
Well, that's right. And it completely dismisses so much philosophical output from the ancient Greeks and so much that's been espoused without any Judeo-Christian influence. And it just, look at the Far East, you look at the Eastern philosophies, you look at, you look at Hinduism, and you look at all these other aspects of culture, Native American culture, and all these sorts of aspects of goodness, the golden rule, all these things. It sort of dismisses all that. It's actually really disingenuous to world culture, is what I find. I find that to be really disingenuous to world culture. Even here in Australia, we've got indigenous culture. We've got one of the oldest cultures in the world, as far as we can trace back 50, perhaps 60,000 years. And we've got an incredible map of our country from that time with all the various tribes. It was very tribal. They lived in their own little certain areas and had little intertribal wars and issues.
Sure.
However, they had laws, as far as we can see. They had these moral laws. You do bad, you get bad. It was as simple as that. It was. There's no appeal to anything that came 58,000 years later from the Middle East. They didn't wait for that to happen until they could modify their lifestyle. You know what I mean? It was simply that they existed. They lived off the land. They lived with each other. They loved each other, and they prospered for tens of thousands of years without this code that Barack likes to appeal to.
But even that idea was contested. I mean, we can look back and say that this sort of setup is most likely the case, but when you had cultures come in and basically more manpower, superior technology, wiping out a culture or supplanting them. I mean, in the case of the colonists in America with the Native Americans, they basically had, I mean, history is written by the victors. They have the ability to rewrite it, unfortunately. So in those instances, then you can have these people who can come along and say they're young Earth creationists. The Earth's only been around for 6,000 years. And nothing ever came before, and I don't have to, la 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 la, like nothing else exists.
La la la. That's right. And then implement that into the education system for future generations. Yeah. To maintain that.
I gotta say, no thanks to you Aussies for sending us Ken Ham.
No. No. Oh boy, he's a piece of work. Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've passed the Ark encounter, like doing long distance trips, and every single time it's, oh God, I wish I had more time. I could use a good laugh. Stop in there.
I'd love to go there one day. Can I please notice where he's prospered? It's the good old US. He's done very well.
You got me there. You absolutely have me there.
There was no way he was getting money to build that here. Let me put it that way.
I'm surprised he got the money from the state.
Oh, well, yeah. Very surprising. Very surprising. But he did it.
Well,
got to give him that at least.
And as an American, we don't even think of Kentucky as really the most biblical of the states. I mean, there's other ones that can compete for that crown.
Yeah, good point. Good point. He got into someone's ear, that's for sure.
Did you catch that debate with Bill Nye? Yes. I guess there were a couple. Yeah, that's
the main one I've seen. Yes, Bill Nye versus Ken Ham. Oh wow, what a shit show that is.
Well, you say that. I mean, you're not wrong.
I do.
I think I agree with you, but I think it really, the one question that basically, and I hope this debate is recycled just constantly over and over for generations, because the one question is like, what's the one thing that could change your mind? Ken Ham is like, nothing. I'm a Christian. I make no bones about it. I'm pretty sure that's verbatim. And then Bill Nye says one piece of evidence to show me the fossil that swam through the different layers or something like that. Show us the evidence. We'd have to reevaluate. That's exactly what a good scientist should be doing. It's like, if there's evidence that changes our point of view, we need to consider it. Yeah, we need to look at how valid this piece of evidence is, and it needs to be taken into consideration. And
no, you got a good point. You have a good point. A very good point. Yep. Yeah,
I mean, pretty much the rest of the debate can be could be literally anything else. But that one thing, I feel like, there it is, slam dunk, game over.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
but I say that as a person of science.
Yeah, sure. Well, and see, with science comes a rationalization, and all Bill was saying there was, let's just rationalize this, and the rational is what we really need to explore and maybe get through as a human species. And the rational needs to be put aside and replaced with the rational. I think that's where Bill was getting at with that as well. So I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Yeah.
What would you say if someone told you science is great, but as a day-to-day thing, it's not practical?
I would say then, leave your home. I would say leave all your medication there. I would say leave all your technology there. I would say just leave. I would say then go back to nature, but then don't start fires. Don't investigate how to survive. Don't investigate levers, or don't try and build a wheel. Just go out into nothingness and try to survive without any of those things.
Yeah, pretty much the scientific method.
That's pretty much all science is. Science is how to live. We need to know how to grow food. We need to know how to, if we're meat eaters, which we're omnivores, we need to cook food so we don't die. I mean, science pretty much is just a way of existing, And it's funny how people adapt science as this communist manifesto. It's like, to all the ones on Twitter, I say, well, they say it's just, it's just a theory. It's all just a theory.
Oh,
It's
God.
just a theory. And I say, well, that's cool. Don't use your phone anymore because that's information theory.
Yeah.
Right. It's information theory. Everything's been brought together to build this phone that you're using to type pixels and colors on a screen. You're converting information to these colors because of all this information theory. And I wish we could get reaction shots from tweets just to see the face thinking about it, maybe just to see the eyes looking up, thinking, processing thoughts in the mind. It'll be good to get some little reactions sometimes.
And I think the problem is you're going to get some reactions from people who aren't really processing that. It's like,
No, I know.
Like, nah, you're an idiot. Thumbs down
idiot.
vote. I don't know how Twitter works.
Yeah, that's all right. Block. You mean blocked? That's how it works. I'm scared. Blocked. You make me scared. Blocked.
Well, oh man, that hits upon something that kind of scares me about information technology. It really does set up a scenario where now everybody gets to live in their own echo chamber.
Yeah, very, very easily. True. Yeah, true. I fell into that trap when I came onto Twitter, 2019, so 2 years. I came in there and thought, cool, I found all these cool people and they were telling me what I wanted to know and what I liked hearing. And then I had to say, ooh, be careful, be careful. What's the other side? Yeah, what's the other side? So it happened to me very easily, very early on. And I think it can happen politically very easily as well. Politically, you can see all the bad points of someone and you say, well, hang on, balance it out with, there was a report there with our Prime Minister. He was spending a lot of money. He was spending a lot of money on his personal travel. And everyone said, he's spending so much money, $3.4 million. This is crazy. But then I said, well, how many have others spent? Okay, let's have a look at it. How many other prime ministers, how much have they spent? Well, 3 million, 3.5, 2.8. Well, he's sort of in the same bracket. Maybe he's spent a little more than the previous prime minister, yeah, but the one before that spent more than him. So you've got to do that and pull back and say, okay, let's get to the facts and rationality and get away from our own biases. It's a hard thing to do sometimes, especially in echo chambers, especially so.
Yeah, no, big time. This is why I make it a point to, if there is a position I think, oh yeah, no, this is absolutely the right one. I hope, but I try not to fail at this, but I will immediately go out and research the opposite point of view.
Cool. That's really
good. Go
good.
find these people
Yeah.
and let's see what, like, a good compelling argument for the opposite case really is.
Yeah.
What ends up turning into a real dumpster fire is when it's like, all right, let's go listen to some flat earthers. All right, let's go find some moon landing hoaxers. Let's listen to
Again, it's context, isn't it? Yeah, it's context. I think politically there's more leeway because you can look at right-wing media and see the spin they're putting on a topic and then look at something more independent to get the baseline topic, and then you can see something on the left that is appealing to something else that isn't the topic. It's sort of like that balancing act where you say, okay, this is what they're saying, they've spun it off this, which is based on that, and you get the bigger picture. That's what I used to do anyway. On a weekend, I would watch a certain channel, then I would watch a different channel, then I would read something else. Okay, this is what they're talking about. This makes sense. And I get why they've spun it their way, and I get it why these other guys have a narrative on it. It's I think with Flat Earth, it's sort of like anyone can prove that the earth is not flat. Anyone can do it these days. It's very easy. It's been done for 2,000 years.
Longer than that.
Longer. Yeah, true. And then you think, well, that's where you think, well, should I be listening to the other side as much as it's probably more entertainment than, well, let me put it another way. It's probably more just to get an idea of where they're coming from, right? If you're being genuine.
I think you hit the nail on the head. At this point now, for me, it's just entertainment. I think it's like half the content on modern day debates. It's flat earthers versus whomever.
Well, it gets the clicks. So.
And I think that's exactly why T-Jump does it.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll basically come out and say it's like, yep, money fuels my empire here. But before I become president of the United States. So, yep.
That's all it is. That's all that's what the atheist experience has become really now. It's just become, people click on it to see Matt get upset about something. Yeah, it's just that thing of whatever gets the clicks. It's the drama. So
100%. I think this is why he was talking about like needing to see a cardiologist or something about his heart in the last couple episodes. He's like, I don't know if I can take this stress. Yeah.
Is it no wonder? No wonder. We're doing this for what, 15 years, 16 years? My God. But yeah, look, that's how that operates. That's the algorithm. That's where the money is. That's where, that's where you got to see where it's coming from. That's the truth of it. Excuse me. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about Matt Dillahunty? You like where he's coming from? You like what he's putting down?
It's a really hard one, and I'll explain. He helped me look at things a different way when I was watching YouTube online. And so deep down, there's a bit of a soft spot for him because of that. He really helped me think of things in a different way. However, to be critical, that's really all it's become now. He's really dismissive. He dismissed some 15-year-old kid, and he apologized for it to his credit, but he really just dismissed this kid. And I just don't agree with that because I suppose because my son is the same age, if he was treated that way, it would be like, hang on, where's all the humanism here? Right? I mean, we're espousing humanism, allegedly. We're espousing critical thinking and skepticism, allegedly. But it seems like he wants to justify it in that, I've heard all these before. I'm just going to get to the point. People don't want to hear all that. And it's like, yeah, no, I can see what you're doing. You want to be angry to get the views, to get the clicks. So I've become a lot more critical of him in recent years.
I'm exactly in the same boat.
Yeah.
I think like I really gravitated towards like the earlier episodes where he would counter a point with an excellent rebuttal. And it's like, well, Collar was stopped dead in his tracks. Obviously, that doesn't apply to all of them. Some of them just like continue down some pretty insane paths. But I guess maybe can you blame the guy? I mean, as you said, like 15, 16 years, like the patience is going to wane.
Yeah. And it visibly has. You can see it has. When you go back to the old clips now, you can see that he spent a lot more time getting to the nugget of what that person was saying and where they were coming from. And then he'd very carefully just dismantle that in a really good way and a clear and precise way. Now it's just bang, 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 bang.
Well, actually, I wonder about that. Okay. I go back to what a lot of people have said about these kind of things, because a lot of it is internal. I mean, it's pretty much never going to happen, you having a conversation with someone where both of you have competing points of view on a subject and one person can completely convince the other person and then they walk away from whatever the opposite viewpoint is. That just never happens. It's always like an internal thing. It usually takes like a seed or a thread that they would need to start pulling on, that they would have to explore. I mean, this happens. It doesn't even have to be scientific or theological. It could be something like white supremacy, Nazism, maybe politics, I suppose. But no shit, where was I going with that?
It does take time. It does take time. Yeah, you won't see it happen straight away.
Yeah. Oh,
But
I'm sure Matt Dillahunty has been very instrumental in people examining their beliefs, their convictions, what they hold to be true, regardless of what they are. It could be theological, it could be scientific, it could be anything. I think epistemology is a very powerful thing that I wish more people would study and try to understand, even in the scientific world, because it's amazing how many people in science are quick to make conclusions or
yes, yeah, true. And to his credit, there have been people calling back saying, I did think about what you said, I've come back and I've rethought what I was thinking. So yeah, to his credit, that has happened.
That happens a lot.
It has taken time, though. I think you've hit the nail on the head. It did take time for them to consider and think and come back later. It doesn't happen straight away. I've never seen that. I agree. I've never seen that happen either. But I think conversely, it happens that way as well. You become convinced of a belief because of time, right? You're introduced to this idea, you're told about the idea, you're convinced of the idea over time. It doesn't happen overnight either.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great word to use too. Convinced, conviction. There's actually a very specific direction I want to go in that line of questioning, but my bladder is about to explode.
Okay.
So 1 second.
Break.
Okay. I have been close to religious people, dated religious people. I have certainly been between you, me, and the rest of the YouTube audience. The girl I'm with now is the last girl I'm going to be with. This is yeah. Don't tell her I said that. But girls, I would say that I would not call it a deal breaker to be with someone who is religious. I guess to me, it's more important to be able to have calm civil discussions and be able to disagree on things and that being fine. I kind of hate the term agree to disagree because I feel like agreeing to disagree is like saying I'm done listening to you right now. But
yeah,
I've heard in one of your videos that so you've sort of deconverted in what, like the past 4 years? Is that right?
Yeah, it's been about the last 3 years now.
3 years,
18. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but a lifelong process, really.
But your mate is still Catholic.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. Yep.
But she knows about your whole Mr. Bear thing.
Yep. Yep.
What does she think about that?
Oh, it's fine. I mean, she knows me well enough. We've known each other for over 20 years now. So she knew that I always questioned that aspect of my life and questioned those concepts. And we've even been to Buddhist meditation talks together, and she gets a lot out of those. She really enjoys those. So she's very, very progressive in that way. She's not fundamentalist or any weekly church going at all. Doesn't pray. Very, very lax Catholic. Very lax Catholic. Yeah, okay. Doesn't agree with the church. Doesn't agree with what's going on there. She believes that the concept of God is a positive in life and can be a positive in life. So she's more about the concept rather than the deity. If that's a way of putting it.
So maybe like the utilitarianism of it.
Yeah, in one aspect. Yeah. that aspect of engaging in that concept as a positive force for life, as a positive way to live your life. Basically, ultimate cherry picking is the way I'll put it. You know,
I think I've heard the term cafeteria Christian.
Yeah, that's a part of it. It's pretty much just the dessert section. It's just,
I like that.
It's the ice cream with the choc fudge section. It's with the sprinkles on top. It's that. It's the verse about love in the Bible. That's essentially it.
I can't get mad about that. Like,
yeah, same. I mean, we don't have to put people in boxes. People are so eager to put everyone in boxes. It's like, just think what you want to think. It's okay.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. I guess the only time I would feel like that would become a sticking point for me is if we're trying to come up with some kind of actions to be performed that are informed by questionable sources. So like if someone, what's the best example? I guess going back to the whole climate change thing. Well, if we're put on this world by God and God wants us to be on this world, then of course climate change wouldn't happen. God wouldn't let that happen. Therefore, I don't have to accept it.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, well, let's not make government mandates based on that kind of thinking. Because not everybody is going to be thinking along those same lines. I think that's the power behind a secular based government, because at least then it's fair to all religions.
Yes. Yeah.
Equally fair / unfair.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
At least it's equal.
At least it's equal, and at least it's based on, again, like you say, a consensus of experts who have the well-being of humanity in mind. It's not about, and it's about this life, not any unproven afterlife.
It's funny you say that. The having the well-being of humanity in mind, going back to that whole conspiracy theory thinking.
Yes.
Conspiratorial thinking. It's the government. They're lying to me. I know it. It's because it's the government.
Yes. The government organized. The government introduced the coronavirus into Italy to kill its retirees, to save money, to put money into roads. That was one conspiracy theory a family member had of mine.
I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, neither had I. And I thought, okay, so the first question is, okay, so where did you hear about this conspiracy? Oh, a friend of a friend. Okay.
Was
Facebook,
this
in other words?
Were they saying like this is a believable conspiracy? Like they're like, oh yeah, this must be it.
They were fairly convinced by it.
Wow.
They were fairly convinced by it. They thought, yeah, I think Armani introduced this via the government into Italy, because there were too many retirees in Italy. So it was time to kill off some retirees, save some money.
Wow.
And I think I got to about question 3. The third question was, okay, so if let's just go with it and say that the government somehow organized this. Okay, so where's the money going to? I don't know, the roads. And that was the end of the conversation. That was
okay.
it. I don't know. That was it, because it all got too hot and heavy.
Well, I mean,
so there you go.
I don't know is a great answer.
It is. It's a perfectly fine answer. Like you say, you're not the expert in everything. Neither am I. Oh, I don't know. I don't know how frogs reproduce exactly. I don't know.
So, okay. I'm sure this happens to people all the time. But this happened to me earlier today. I was driving to my house. There's like a new used car dealership right on the way. And I saw that they had a truck that I've been trying to get for months now sitting in the lot. It's like, well, I got to go check this out. And I did. And,
Mm.
salesman comes out, greets me, and we're talking about it. And it was like it was the off-road model, which is the preferred model, but they had it listed as the sport model on the thing. So it was actually like more closer in line with the kind of truck that I wanted.
Mm.
But then just in talking to the salesman about that, he asked me, well, what's the difference between the sport and the off-road model? Because he wasn't familiar with the brand, because it was a used car lot. He was
Okay.
more knowledgeable in
Okay.
a different brand. And
Sure.
I knew the answer to that question. I've been researching this truck for months.
Yeah.
But then I was just sort of like caught dumbfounded because I just couldn't like pull the answer out of my back pocket for whatever reason, brain fart, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and honestly, the best answer would have been like, I don't know. I have to think on that. I have to go back to my notes. I know I've got this written down somewhere, but I
Yeah.
just started, I don't know. It's like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's the suspension and like some other this and that. And it's like, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Why are my lips moving and why are words falling out of them? Uh, I,
Do you know? Did you work it out?
well, yeah, I hate, I did, whenever I think back on me doing stupid crap like that, I hate, it's cringe city, and I hate it. It's like, so, all right,
Mm.
go immediately right back to my notes, go to what are the like specific differences? And I wasn't wrong about what I said,
Okay.
but it doesn't
Okay.
make me feel better for how I said it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
that weird kind of thing. I feel like I should have known better. I should have just been like, I don't remember.
Well,
I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. That's what I should have said. And I didn't.
yeah, sure. But your intuition seemed to help you out a little bit there because, like you say, what you said wasn't wrong per se. Perhaps you weren't confident in saying it somehow because you didn't uh, knowingly know what you were saying. You were simply going from intuition, which can make us feel a bit out of control and make us feel silly and weird.
Oh
So
yeah, no,
maybe that was
that's
a part. I
exactly
don't
it.
know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just felt a bit strange because you were saying it from a primal area of your brain. Maybe I don't know. The lizard section of your brain. I don't know.
Yeah, the like rote memorization, just like I'm going through the
Yeah.
motions kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which that,
Yeah.
I mean, even that's scary.
It can be. It can be very scary. So I think again with time and maturity, the ability to say I don't know tends to come a lot easier. Do you find?
No,
You can say that. No, it's harder for you.
My honest answer is no. That is still one of the hardest things, especially if I
Yeah.
think I do know.
Well, yeah. When you think you do know, that's right. It is hard, but say you genuinely don't know. Is it easy for you to say I don't know? If you genuinely don't know,
I hope so.
I think we all hope so. Yeah, there's an element to that. Yeah,
I hope so.
And again, with context, I think with the bigger questions, did something come from nothing? You can say, well, I don't know. I think that's a fairly easier aspect or avenue to say, I don't know. It gives you more leeway to say, look, I don't know, but we can hypothesize, we can guess.
Yeah, speculate.
We can speculate.
I think if it's something that I'm confident no one could know, I think I would be the first person to say,
yes.
I don't know. And there's no way you can either.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point.
But man, truth serum right here. Saying that kind of makes me feel icky. This is probably something I could stand to improve. Being quicker to say, I don't know. I think having a couple little ones in the house, accepting responsibility at work. If someone is depending upon my knowledge and experience in an area, and failing that, my educated opinion. I mean, my paychecks aren't signed with the expectation of me saying I don't know
That's
every
yeah,
2
true.
seconds.
Yeah, true.
The expectation is, well, then go find out. Do
Well,
some
that's
research, run the
what I was going to
experiment.
say. Yes, that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask how old. Do you mind saying how old the kids are?
5 and 8.
Yeah, at that age, there's a lot of why questions, aren't there? There's a lot of why and how, and you hit the nail there. Because when I felt weird not knowing how to answer those questions, the tool I found that worked now with this magic box in everyone's houses that we can find information on is say, well, let's find out together. Let's have a look and see if that's actually true. And I find that they're, as teenagers, they're using that tool a lot more now. They're saying, well, let's find out. Let's have a look. My wife calls it Mrs. Google. Let's ask Mrs. Google and see what Mrs. Google has to say. But then we say, well, that site's no good. This one's good. Let's look at Snopes, for example. If if they see some sort of viral video, let's check out Snopes and see what Snopes says. It's fake. Okay. And this is why. That's why Snopes is so brilliant. It tells you why it's fake. It doesn't just say it's fake. It says this is why. And so that tool I've found really helpful. And it's actually, and doesn't make me feel dumb either. Because kids ask so many questions and we don't know everything. So let's find out together. And then you go, well, there you go. And it doesn't diminish you in their eyes. It's actually really good because they feel like they're sharing something with you, so like an experience.
I think that absolutely fuels your notion of them being so mature for their age. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, look, I hope so. It's just one of those things that makes them question rather than simply believe what they're told. It's like, well, let me find out. Let me find out.
Yeah, I suppose this is speaking about like even my experience at the car dealership. I feel like I should do the research before I give the answer. I feel like my MO is more, let me give you an answer now, whatever the value may be. Then I go back and research it. And then I end up either doubling down on the answer or an asterisk or just saying, ignore everything I said before. Here's the actual answer.
Yep.
I think maybe I cut down my own credibility by doing that. So maybe.
Oh, okay.
Mental
that's
note.
a risk. It's a risk.
Yeah.
It's a risk when you do that. That's right.
But I should probably put that asterisk at the front.
Yeah. Preface your response.
Well, yeah, hopefully I can improve.
Look, it's all of us really. None of us are perfect. I've been guilty of saying rubbish I didn't believe in the past. And it wasn't exactly lying. It was just that I didn't really believe what I was saying.
Do you ever feel like the framing of a thing can impact what your response could be? I'm going to struggle to find like a really good example of this, but it's almost like, someone could like propose a scenario designed to target an initial response of like a knee-jerk reaction in regards to a certain emotion or something like this, causing people to immediately jump to a conclusion or something to that effect. But then you actually like look into the situation further, like, oh, well, if I were actually in the situation, I don't know if I would have said that, believed that, explored that, or acted in the same way.
You see a lot of that happening in online circles where someone could be asking just a genuine question about trans rights or sexuality or what have you, and it could be just a genuine question, but it's just inflamed and just it's just taken way out of proportion. And this person would even be saying, look, I'm really just asking to get the conversation going. And people would just be lambasting that person. So look, and that's just one example I've seen in recent years. And it's tough with topics that are perhaps the minority in society. It's a minority, so we do have to be careful about how we approach questioning minorities, of course. I'm a fairly lefty socialist, so I'm probably more sensitive to those sorts of things. But saying that, I do have to be a free thinker, and I do have to promote myself as a free thinker. And if there are questions that are perhaps hard to answer or pinpoint, then we have to still maintain a level of rationality. Like I've said before, that irrational response is like, wow, guys, we're just asking questions here. We are trying to be genuine. I think one of an incident that happened last year touched a nerve with me. It was an issue about sex education in schools. As a teacher, this person who I thought I knew fairly well on Twitter, they said, they shared a story just really quickly. It was a story about the potential for sexual assault if sex education, this more explicit form of sex education, was introduced into schools. And they said, yes, this is going to happen. There will be more sexual assault. And I simply replied saying, was that based on any data at all? Because I was curious. I hadn't heard of any data around this at all, anything empirical, any studies at all about this, about sexual assaults in relation to sex education. So I was simply asking, have you sourced this from somewhere? Do you know where this is coming from? And they just said, no, but it will happen. And I've said, well, you don't know that. If you're not going to cite any studies, and I can't find any studies on this, then what are you basing it on? It sounds like you're basing it on your emotions. And they said, oh, just because you support sexual assault in schools, it was just this massive leap. And I thought, well, hang on, wow, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just asking for a bit of evidence based on your claim. Sure. And so they pretty much just dismissed me based on that. They thought I was in support of sexual assault, that I was happy for it to increase around sex education. I was happy for all kids of all ages to see this sort of sex education. I thought, wow, that was a big reaction from someone I thought who claimed to be quite a good, rational free thinker and skeptic.
So I think that's an example of, or a good example of, a lack of charitable listening, I think. I mean, the reason why you're questioning it is like, I am unfamiliar with the connection between sex education at too young of an age and an increase in this proponent that I would hope we all agree we don't want to go up.
We can all agree on that. And I think because it was specifically aimed at teachers being the ones perpetrating the sexual assault. So it was very specific.
I didn't immediately take it that way.
That's what it was about. It was about the potential for teachers to perpetuate more sexual assault or be more in a position to perpetuate sexual assault. And I thought, this is a very niche thing. What's this based on? And it was really just based on a knee-jerk reaction to the introduction of more explicit sex education into schools. So there was a lack of data, and I just questioned it, and that was the end of that relationship. So there you go.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was in some ways. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's a knee-jerk reaction. If you've got someone who is knee-jerk reaction willing to crucify anyone based on something, so I don't know. I feel like there's not much substance there. That's, I mean, if that's how little they thought of your relationship, maybe
yeah,
it's not a big loss.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make it suck any less.
No, true, but it does make it. It takes the edge off. Yeah.
Drink number 3. All right. Non-alcoholic this time.
Boo.
No, I know where the edge is. I
Yeah,
gotta.
fair enough. Yeah, 2 or 3 do it for me these days as well. I'm happy with 2 or 3.
Oh, man, this thing
Every now and then, not often.
This is 12%. This
Oh,
might
wow.
as well be 3.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've only got 4% in our house, so we're happy with that.
Fair enough.
12 is good. Is that beer or is it something else?
It
Spirits?
is, these Michigans, I don't know. They like living in Michiganders. They like living in igloos and sucking down wine level beers.
Wow.
As far as I understand, some of the cities here have won like so many beer contests that they just stopped holding them because they knew.
I knew who the winner is. You win. Just don't worry about it. Yeah.
And all of these microbrews are just pursuing these what is it? Oak bourbon barrels. The stuff that they'll age whiskey in. So once they're done aging the whiskey, then they'll throw beer in there so that they can get the whiskey flavor infused into the beer. And now they're all doing it. There's a specific brewery who does that with like this whole line that they have mines filled with barrels just sitting there, aging with beer in them, so that they can soak up the flavor. And they've got like maple syrup barrels, whiskey barrels, Scotch barrels. And nice. They all just had and every single one of those beers, they come out like double-digit percentages, and I'm hooked. Can't sing.
Nice.
It takes a level of self-control that I don't know if I fully have.
Yeah, sure. It's understandable.
It's just so delicious. They make so many of them taste like coffee and chocolate. And in fact, my favorite one was it's called Dragon's Milk. But you can't get them anymore because they just make too many flavors and they just mold in the next one. But they had a s'mores flavored dragon milk.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, man,
I know, that sounds a bit too sweet. Yeah. But good.
Oh yeah. Extremely.
Dangerous.
You a drinker? You said like 4%.
Moderate.
Stuff, but yeah,
moderate. Yeah, I like Scotch. I do like Glenfiddich and some certain Scotches, but I'm a moderate drinker. I like I say, I have 2 or 3 here and there. That's about it. Bit of wine. I like red wine. Beer. In Australia, we're getting into the craft beers. So the craft beers are getting in them a bit too diversified.
A bit too diversified.
Yeah, I think they're a bit too diversified. What I mean is, I think they're just getting they're diversifying so much that they're becoming homogenous, if that makes sense. they've all become this unique craft beer that's basically just malt and yeast. It's not much different from one another. It's just the labels are different. So I'm not.
No, I get it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's more about the marketing than how different the beer is.
If I'm going anywhere and I know I'm gonna have a beer, if it's Bud Light, Labatt, or like any of that generic stuff, it's like pass.
Yeah.
It's oh, you got one that has a funny name that I've never heard of before. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to be in that ballpark. So I totally know what you mean.
Yeah. No, I'll have a few. It's only 2:00 here, so I'm not going to have anything just yet.
Oh, fair enough.
I know Australians are known as beer drinkers, but we're not that bad.
Well, Foster's is like your version of Bud Light, right? Like it's fairly ubiquitous.
But no one drinks Foster's here. It's more the UK.
Okay.
It's fun. Yeah, Foster's. No one buys Foster's here. No one drinks it here.
You know, it's funny you
I don't.
mentioned that. Like what passes for domestic in
Mm,
America apparently is huge in Great Britain and Europe.
yeah, yeah. It's the same with Foster's. Foster. I don't think I can even buy Foster's at my local bottle shop. I don't think I could even buy Foster's.
Mm,
It's every other beer except that. Yeah, yeah.
okay. So Foster's is not Australian for beer.
No, not at all. No, it's one of those urban legends, I think. No one puts shrimps on the barbie. No one, we don't do that. Yeah.
Dingoes don't eat your babies.
Dingoes don't eat babies. No. Yeah, it's all part of the cultural appropriation. It's taken place.
Okay, so here's like a weird tangent.
Shoot.
When St. Patrick's Day rolled around, I made a post on Facebook saying St. Patrick's Day was like the last form of cultural appropriation that was considered acceptable.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know if that's actually true, but it sure seems like
it's not a bad point. It's not a bad point. I think there's a lot of merit to that. No one talks about the Irish gangsters anymore, do they? They were pretty big in New York around late 70s, early 80s. All the Irish mobs.
Like the IRA and stuff.
More the Irish mafia that established itself in the US. More the Irish gangsters that came through. No one really mentions them anymore, as if they don't exist anymore.
Now that was religiously fueled, right? That was like Catholic Protestants.
Yeah, it has its roots in the IRA back in Ireland. Yeah, that's right. Catholics versus Protestants. So yeah, correct. Yeah, and it seemed to carry through into the US as well. But you're going to get that with the drug trade, anything involving importing, exporting those sorts of goods, in inverted commas, goods, is bound to happen. But yeah, it's funny. Even the Russian mafia isn't spoken about as much anymore. But anyway, yeah, strange, different tangent. But yeah, there are cultural appropriations that are slowly being cancelled as we go along. That's not appropriate anymore. Let's just move on. Yeah. The drunken leprechauns, the rowdy Irishmen. Yeah. All that stereotypes.
Are you familiar with the Dave Chappelle debacle that I guess went down in about the past month?
Yeah, I've seen the fringes of it. I wanted to reserve judgment and watch it for myself. I haven't got to it yet, but I have seen the fringes. I have seen the fallouts. I've seen his response to Netflix, both supporting him in some ways and also the backlash he's received. I haven't made my mind up because I haven't seen it. Have you seen it? Have you watched it?
Yeah, I watched. Around the time, like I watched his most recent one. I watched I think like one from a few back, because he basically okay, let's say I take him at his word, and he's talking about the same person across multiple things. I felt like it was sincere and heartfelt and not mean-spirited. Okay. And I feel like if that's how you approach a situation, a difficult subject where, feelings can be tender. I feel like not talking about it, not like pretending it doesn't exist, is maybe the greater disservice.
To clarify, are we on the same page? Is this the trans controversy that we're talking about? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Because I do remember seeing a previous special of his where he's making the joke of giving the T people a lift in his car. Like the L people are here, the G people are there. And
I'm familiar with that joke. Absolutely.
You're
Yeah.
familiar with that joke?
Yeah.
And at the and so this is the complicated thing, because at the time, um yeah, sure, it's funny. Retrospectively, I think people have accumulated the case against him and said, look, he was really talking about this back then, about the tea people. He was making fun of the tea people. They were the outliers. They were the this, they were the that. And I think that's been lifted, and an accumulative case has been built against him, against this new special, which I haven't seen, admittedly, so I don't know how it builds into this one. If it does that make sense? Is that a possibility that's happened here? And I'm not defending him because I don't know what he said. So
You're asking the question. I understand.
it's more, is that a possibility that's happened? I don't know.
Well, any answer I give you is going to be my personal take on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that it's certainly cumulative. He certainly references it multiple times. He goes back to the whole thing. I think he even plays the victim card to a degree, saying like, I say one thing and I immediately get canceled, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's like genuinely playing the victim card, because I think he even points out, it's like, but hey, I'm getting a Netflix special, so clearly he's not that canceled.
It's complicated. It is complicated.
It really is, and maybe it's something as we gain more information, more understanding of people in those situations, and more of a humanist point of view and understanding of whatever plights our fellow man, that even like the public opinion of the LGBTQ community, as that grows and expands, it could be that the public sphere looks back upon these specials favorably. I don't know. But right now, I do feel like it is something that is sort of inflamed, and people are more inclined to have knee-jerk reactions and want to immediately label something as, this is bad, it needs to go.
Yeah. And if we just tweak it a little bit and say, just imagine that he'd focused on lesbians, for example. So let's take away the trans issue and let's make it a lesbian issue. Not even a gay, as in gay men and gay women, but just make it a lesbian issue. So just say, for example, he tweaked his joke to be about the L's. This is the L's. The L's did this, the L's did that. So what level should that be examined in future? What level of offense, what level of criticism? Does it change the levels of criticism?
I think it would.
I think it would too. I think, to be honest, the dynamic would be quite different.
Yeah, like within the lens of the current culture, like the clapback would be.
Yeah,
that probably not a good phrase to use.
cut that part out. But I know it. I think we know what we're saying. We're sort of saying that what are the dynamics here, and see, because the trans issue has become more prevalent, and rightly so. There are trans people being killed. We know this for a fact. It's on the rise. We know this for a fact. So again, we look at the facts and the empiricism and say, yeah, I can see why people are upset with this. I get it. But then you sort of, it's almost like applying a critical eye on the whole blackface issue to this is to make another leap, but to draw it back to this topic. You look at the blackface issue of the early 20s. Yeah, Buster Keaton was doing blackface in the 1920s. But it's complicated because he was doing a split screen technique. They were doing the split screen special effect where Buster Keaton played every single character in this film. It was 30 characters in a film. He was the whole orchestra in this film because of the split screen technique. So when they showed an audience, one of them was a blackface character. It was him in blackface. Very embarrassing now. In the context of the time, he was trying to play as many different people as possible. Again, I'm not apologizing for him. I'm just trying to put it in context in that, okay, one of the options was, okay, I'll be an African-American person. I'll be, back then a Negro, what have you. So he deliberately did that to be a different character. So that's the context of it. But now it just looks bad. You look at that and go, oh my God, this is so embarrassing, in retrospect. That's just one example I can think of. I don't know if it directly ties in with what Chappelle's doing. I don't know, but it could be an aspect of it. Maybe not directly, because he is specifically talking about the tea people, right? He's deliberately doing it. So,
well, I think the reason why people may be up in arms about Chappelle is because of what he was saying about the tea people, not necessarily that he's speaking about tea people.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Because there were a couple of things that I would have to, talking to my girlfriend, like, what do you think? Do you think what he said right there, like that's the thing that's making people go crazy? And she would say, like, yeah, I think that was a shitty thing that he just said. And I'd have to sit and think about that. It's like, didn't he really come across as shitty to me? So like, I'm just like hyper focused on like, all right, well, what did he say? What did he mean by it? Like taking all of this into context, now thinking about like the public sphere. Now, like if he said this like the 1980s, would it mean the same thing? So I don't know. I'm like trying to take a deep dive into it because I want to be sensitive to the needs of other people, especially if it's literally having an effect on whether or not they live or die. I feel like, well, I mean, that's the highest price that can be paid, and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I also don't want to just kowtow to irrationality.
I know it's a really hard line to walk, because I consider myself an ally. I don't judge. I judge people by their actions rather than who they are. I've always maintained that. And I've known trans people. I still do. I don't think that's it. The other element to this is that I'm not trans. And that's something that we all have to always remember, isn't it? That we're not the ones he's joking about. So, but there's a shield there. It's easy to get to perhaps not take it as seriously.
Yeah, we don't have to live with it. Like, we have our outs.
Yeah, that's right. We've got a very easy out. Oh, well, I'm not trans, so it's funny. But if we are, well, would it be? I don't know, because I'm not. So you really have to take yourself out of your own shoes and really insert yourself into someone who is. But you know what, primarily, really, it's listening to trans people. We have to listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And again, is it a loud minority, or is it a rational majority who are saying these things? Right? Because we all know the loud minority do grease the wheels in some such situations. They are the ones, you'll get the three loud ones who will cancel an event. So is it those, or is it the broad consensus who are saying, hey, this is really shitty what he's saying?
I think you should definitely watch the special.
I will.
Because there's definitely a part there where he's whether it was a real event or not, he's relaying what the trans person said, and it was an emotional moment for the trans person. They said, I don't need you to understand
Mm.
I just need you to accept that I'm a human being and
Yep.
that I'm just trying to, live my life. I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly the words that he used, but yeah,
Sure.
it's not because that we're not trans. There's no
Mm.
way we could understand what it means to be trans.
Yeah. Yeah.
But asking to recognize them for being another human being, I mean, I think
Mm.
that is the thing that
Yeah.
people are probably saying that's where we're not meeting them in the middle. That's where we're doing them the disservice.
Okay. Okay. That's fair enough.
And
Yeah.
the fact that Dave says that, and I mean, that's my takeaway. So when I watch Dave Chappelle's special, this is what I'm thinking about after the fact.
Mhm.
And I
Okay.
feel like I'm walking away with something better than I
Yeah.
did going in.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is
Yeah.
why it makes it more interesting to me that people are citing it as being a bad thing or promoting a bad message.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, look, I'll have to make up my mind. I'll watch it and see what it's all about. But like I said, I've just seen fringes of videos, his responses, his comeback, his opinions, others' opinions. It's really complicated. It's like saying, is Joe Biden a better president? It's like, well, it's complicated, right?
Yes. Yes.
He's not just a better president all of a sudden because it's Joe Biden. It's like, well, it's complicated. It's complicated. And here's why. Here's 50 reasons why. And here's 50 why not. It's really hard. It's really hard. So yeah, I'll have to reserve an opinion on that. That were my fringe thoughts on the whole pop culture Chappelle thing.
Oh, fair
So,
enough. Well,
yeah.
and I thought you brought up a great point too, like with the whole president thing.
Mm.
When in talking to T Jump, he sort of made me feel better because as soon as Donald Trump won the presidency, like I mean, me and I think a whole lot of other people suddenly became more interested in politics because we thought,
Mhm.
holy crap, here's where the show gets good.
Yes.
Like this is where
Yes.
something's gonna happen.
Oh yes.
And now that it's back to like the status quo, Biden being in office, I'll be honest, I'm not
Yeah.
really paying attention as much. It's like, no, it's
Well,
just more
that's
of the
right.
same
That's right.
boring.
That's right. And that's the danger because this is where things can slip under the radar a little bit and
Yeah.
you pick up on it later. You say, oh, hang on, that happened back in February. What was that about? So yeah, that sense of normalcy can be manipulated and taken advantage of by those in
Complacency.
power.
Yeah.
Complacency, yeah, complacency, normalcy, yep. It can really be taken advantage of. Um, Look, I think generally things are better. Very generally things are better, but yeah, again, it's complicated. But yeah.
Yeah. The thing that T Jump said that I'm still mulling over is that
Sure.
ultimately just didn't matter. It's political grandstanding, maybe it's perception, but ultimately meh. And I'm still pondering that. um
Mm.
uh it's not the first time I've heard it. A friend that I talked to, uh who moved away, unfortunately, he as soon as Trump won the presidency, like my fear was like, holy crap, how bad is it going to get? And
Mm.
he's like,
Yeah.
what do you think's changed in like the past 4 years or 8 years or 16 years? Every time we get a new president, like what really changes in your life?
Mm.
And the best answer I could come up with is tax credits.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it's something that's happening in the news, but this is me answering this question from an extremely privileged position. I'm a
Yep. Yep.
cisgender straight white male.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
I'm not really a minority in anything. with the only exception being atheism. But then living in America, that's really no big thing.
You're not being killed. That's right.
Yeah.
You're not sitting in a jail cell. And I think ultimately people are the force is maybe what he was inferring in some way. I think he was maybe referring to the fact that people are the force for both good and bad in any nation, really. Politicians can only do so much in certain ways. I mean, sure, they can launch the bombs if they want to. They can launch military forces if they want to, and they have. And Trump did. He did utilize military force in Syria and so on. But see that's where it affects. That's where it can affect anyone outside of the US. He can have impacts on other lives. Like you say, from a privileged point of view, it doesn't seem that things change that much. I don't know if that's entirely true. I don't know. I don't think so. But
yeah, the one like lens that I was bringing that up as is like I'm not a woman. I'm not thinking about reproductive rights.
Yes.
Or the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not worried about getting the birth control that I want or need, whatever the case may be. I mean,
you're not worried about the healthcare aspects. There's people on.
Well, no, I think we all do about the healthcare.
I remember seeing when Trump got in, they were interviewing this fellow in the South in a very bad way. He needed a lot of medical help. He was basically living off the land. He was living off squirrels and rodents, basically, whatever he could catch. He was in his 60s and he said, Trump is going to save my life. Now that he's there, he is going to save my life. His first medical consultation cost him $6,000. And his first treatment, I should say, not consultation, his first treatment cost $6,000. He was scheduled for at least 6 more treatments. This guy had no money. He had no insurance. He couldn't pay it. So the treatments ended. He had one, I think they wrote it off somehow. Or he still owes them. I don't know what the situation was. They didn't report that part, but they reported the part that he said, Trump is going to save my life. Now, I wonder where that guy is now. And I wonder what happened to his political ideologies. I wonder if he hung on to the idea that Trump was this hope. Or I wonder if he just packed it in. I really don't know. But it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder where those people end up. Maybe he was at Dealey Plaza waiting for JFK Jr. to come back. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that sounds awful. It sounds awful because like hinging all of your hopes, like literally your entire life, like on a specific thing. I mean, all I know is what you just told me, but I'd be very curious if there was something informing the Trump is going to do this thing. Like, was it his knowledge of the Affordable Health Care Act that was passed before under Obama?
No, it wasn't based on any legislation or potential legislation. It wasn't based on anything other than Trump was the image of hope. That's all it was. Yeah, that's all it was. It was he had no knowledge of the political aspects of it.
Do you know who Jesse Lee Peterson is?
Yes.
And you know what he calls Trump, right?
No. What does he call him?
The Great White Hope.
Oh, God. Why is Peterson more whiter than white guys? I don't get it. It's a really horrible, racist thing to say. I know it's a really horrible thing to say. But he's so defensive against African Americans. It's so bizarre. Has he got some points? I've only seen a few. Admittedly, I've seen maybe 6 tops of his videos.
Oh, I've watched so many. I kind of binged
Okay.
on him because I
Mm,
spent, because like so much of that time I was in disbelief, just, jaw on the floor, like how uh and as far as I can tell, um I don't think there's a lot going on up here.
I don't think so either. No.
He's latched onto the Bible and a very few set of
Explains a lot.
principles, and
Mm,
then like that's it, like just these
mhm,
principles will now inform
mhm.
everything going on in my life, everything I
Right.
see, hear,
Right.
whatever. And yeah, and
Dangerous.
this is like one thing that I have to, I'm almost envious of. It doesn't matter what it's like, a level of confidence or assuredness that it doesn't matter what he does not give one iota
Mm, no.
to anyone else's opinion,
Mm,
any other points that they can bring up. It's just like bulletproof armor, just
mhm,
whatever. Nope, my
mhm.
principles are just are better than yours.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that explains a lot. Explains a lot. And he even gets people's names wrong. And he doesn't care that he gets their names wrong. And he doesn't know who he's talking about half the time. Yeah. I think we're seeing a man just slowly dismantling from the inside out. He's slowly unraveling in public. It's
it
almost like the pieces are falling apart slowly over time.
it's a
Mm.
50-year-old train wreck. Like the
Yeah,
train wreck
yeah,
is still occurring.
yeah, yeah. It's like that. It's like in the Matrix Reloaded when the 2 semi trucks crash and it's all in slow motion and they're flying through the air. But that
And
shot goes for 15 years. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a 15-year long shot. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's why I could sit there and binge so many episodes. And I finally had to get to the point where it's like, this isn't going anywhere, is it?
Just to see how bad this gets. Let's see how bad this gets. Um, well, there was a period there I was the same. I used to I watched a few of his videos and thought, oh, okay, maybe he's got some good points. I was silly enough to think maybe he's got some good points. Maybe African Americans aren't pulling their weight. Maybe they aren't applying for all these jobs. Maybe they aren't being treated as unfairly as they claim to be. But it took those ideas, it didn't take very long to counter those thoughts with actual facts. It really didn't.
Yeah.
Like you say, he's very convincing. He's saying, well, why do you feel you're being discriminated against? You got a job and you left it. He's constantly flipped the script on them in such a disingenuous way that they had. I think so the one I saw was he was talking to 2, it was a woman and a man, both African American, and he was asking them about their experiences in the workplace. You
Hmm.
may recall this one or seen this one. And he'd do it in such a way that they were completely unprepared to reply to him. Whereas if they were armed with the facts and the figures, they probably could very easily have owned him in that interview. But the fact that they didn't, he capitalized on that. He capitalized on their lack of knowledge of the facts and figures, and essentially just drove them into the ground based on just pure speculation.
I'll have to be honest, I don't think those were the kinds of episodes that I really took a deep dive in.
Sure.
The,
Yeah.
the ones that I was really gravitating towards were the ones where uh the other person really was well armed with facts,
Mm-hmm.
figures, and
Okay.
a good grasp of what
Mm.
the opposite point of view was. And
Okay.
it was just clear. I felt, obviously this is me like projecting my own thoughts and opinions, but I thought it was clear that Jesse was outmatched in every possible way. but he absolutely acted like that wasn't the case. And that's
Wow.
it was like the Jerry Springer element. It's like, this is amazing.
Wow.
So those were the episodes I ended up watching the most of.
Mhm.
But the way you say it, the way you say like he's sort of like putting a spin on things, I feel like that's giving him a credit that is undeserved. Because
Yeah.
my takeaway from all of those videos that I've seen of him is he is just incapable or unwilling, I can't tell the difference, of accepting any form of nuance. It's just, nope, these are like the 10 commandments, that's it. And if you don't go with the 10 commandments, then you're wrong. And there is nothing you could say.
I'm leaning more to the incapable camp. the more I see, like I say, I've only seen a few, but from what I've seen, I'm leaning towards the incapable. I think he may be incapable of taking anything on that's a bit gray.
Oh, he'll take it on.
He will. Okay.
He will have anyone on his show. He will he invites them, but as soon as he like offends them or says like whatever's on his mind and just and then they're like, all right, I'm done with this crap, and rightly so that they do that. He ends up saying, so they're running away. See, they can't. They can't stand up to the truth.
I think I mean that he's incapable of taking on. It could be that he's a prisoner of his own making, in that he needs to put out a show. He needs people to watch it. And similarly, linking back to Dillahunty, he knows what people want. So it could be that he's incapable because he's a prisoner of his own making.
Wow. You just said Dillahunty and Jesse Lee Peterson are the same in this aspect. This is blowing my mind. I didn't think.
Well, I don't know if it's exactly true, but
it's an entertaining thought.
There could be something in there. I don't know. I'm just shooting off the cuff.
Fair enough.
Shooting from the hip.
I will say I do feel a little guilty. We are sitting here talking about Jesse Lee Peterson, and I guess who else we've talked about, and they're not here to defend themselves.
That's right. We should give them the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe.
Cut this part out.
Maybe we should, but I don't want
to. No, that's fine. No canceling or editing going on here. Now look, essentially they're media personalities, and the media can change people. It can make people act in certain ways that they may feel pressured to act. You see it with Fox News. You see it with all sorts of media outlets where it's 24 hours. They have to get this out there, and there's no way 100% of these articles, stories, or topics are researched to the best of their ability. There's no way.
Yeah.
And that's why we see so much disagreement and so much going on in the public sphere, with where I was saying that people control a lot of what happens in certain areas, especially in democratic countries, via protest and so on. But then you get the other side that are protesting the wrong things. So that's probably not the best analogy. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the things we're seeing, reading, and watching aren't perhaps the best things to be seeing, reading, and watching.
Totally. I think I've got a really good example to that point. Are you familiar with the channel Rationality Rules?
Yeah. Yes.
And
Steve Woodford. Yeah.
That's right. And he put out that one piece about trans athletes.
Yeah. Yes, I
And
remember.
that became,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
proverbial
it became a
shit hitting
big
the
thing.
fan.
Yeah, he made a follow-up video. He explained it a bit more. He went for an, I think he apologized from memory.
Yep.
He tried to
He totally did a
clarify.
180 on the original video.
He did a 180. The criticism there is that it's still there. I'm still in two minds about it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm still in two minds. I see from the extreme on one end who say the video is still there, and I agree he should take it down. However, his follow-up videos are there to explain that. So here we have a conundrum. We have his original video that perhaps is keeping up in relation to his follow-up to say, look at this, make up your own mind. This is where I went wrong. This is where I went wrong. And this is my recourse based on the backlash.
Yeah, I think he's got a big old asterisk next to it.
There is a big asterisk. There is. So what do? Do you take both videos down and then no one knows his position on it? Then it just becomes hearsay, right? Then he's got no leg to stand on because the videos are gone. He can't say, well, these were posted at this time. But then again, what he's posted was shit. It was wrong. So it's a real conundrum. I haven't made up my mind about it. I don't know where he stands, and I haven't seen much else where he's been anti-trans.
Right. I don't think his position is anti-trans.
Right. I don't. Yeah.
I do think I think the original video was let me get the whole sentence out. A good faith effort, but half-assed, because obviously as soon as he acquired new information, he had to then obviously look back at what he made and go, wow, this is crap. I think leaving up the old one and then posting the new one with his revised position is the best solution, because then he can show people, hey, look, I stumbled, I was wrong, here's why I was wrong. Because alternatively, if you just remove it, well, then there is no history, there is no example of how someone is wrong.
Yeah, good.
That's
a really good point.
I think it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
As long as you learn from it and correct it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you'd like just try and like wipe the slate clean, like you never made a mistake, I think that does the greatest disservice, because it's just asking for the same mistake to be.
Yeah, I think it depends where your level of integrity lies. Now, is your integrity, I suppose the question is, does someone have more integrity if they make a video that's wrong and then make a follow-up video that corrects that mistake and shows that they've learned from that mistake? Or is it better for them, do they have more integrity if they take down that video because that video is still making them money? So where does the question is where is the level of integrity, right?
He did demonetize the first one.
He did do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So at least he's done that aspect of it. He's not making anything from the video. Perhaps what his currency now is the clicks and the views and the shares, etc. So that's where the currency there lies, which boosts his overall channel. So which has the more currency? The immediate money he gets from that video, or the overall currency he gets from the video? That's I suppose where that question of integrity comes down now.
You definitely interesting. Like, does he make money from it? I don't think demonetize was the right word. I believe, going off of memory, I could be wrong, I believe what he did was any money that he made from the video, he was forwarding to a charity that helped the cause. I don't remember the specific charity or the cause.
See,
But I
that throws
also
throws a spanner in the works for me.
okay.
That reduces the integrity, because it's like, I'm making money off this bad video. Let's just call it bad, to help the people I was bad to. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Like an ends justify the means. Like I made a
Yeah,
bad thing, but it
yeah.
fills this.
But anything that profits from this is going to help the people I was bad to.
That becomes harder to weigh. But
Yeah,
we're also kind of speculating here.
yeah, we are. But these are the things I've considered in terms of where I stand on his position.
Fair.
And if I could watch every one of his videos, which I haven't done, read everything he's written, and seen everything he's said about the trans issue, then I would be an authority. I have to profess that I'm not an authority on his position on it. So I can only go by what I've seen and the opinions and viewpoints of the trans community, because people do bring it up and say, why is it still there? So I feel in terms of their aspects is that because, and look, they do have a point, because even now, when was it done? 2 years ago, over a year ago, say 18
quite
months.
a while. Yeah.
Quite a while. Now, I'm going to be honest and say, I see that thumbnail come up still to this day.
Interesting.
Not even on YouTube. I'll see it on the internet. I'll see it somewhere else. I'll see it on Twitter. I'll see that thumbnail. And it's in relation to criticism. It's in relation to support. It's in relation to a negation of it. But that thumbnail still comes up. So in one way or another, he's still profiting off this video. So they've got a point. I have to say they've got a point. Trans community does have a point in saying, why is it still up?
So
but but there's a but. All the things we just talked about, right?
yeah,
all those considerations as well.
So I told you when I was interviewing T-Jump, I mean, this was like the first and honestly paramount question that I was asking him, because he was spending all his time debating flat earthers. And my question was, in so doing, is he not giving them a platform? Is he not spreading their talking points, their calling it skepticism as being a bit charitable.
Yeah.
But his response was kind of fantastic. If you feel like their points are something to be feared or harmful, that's not necessarily indicative of giving them a platform being the wrong thing. It's probably more indicative of your counter arguments being crap.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah.
And
yeah,
going back to what we had talked about before, I am definitely against the idea of censorship, exposure to everything, being able to analyze things and think critically. That is paramount. And I kind of keep coming back to that, and I think he might be sitting on the right answer.
It's a fantastic answer. And this taps into the elements of fact, empiricism, and truth, because they're hard things to go up against. I know the flat earthers feel that some of them feel that they're talking the truth. However, I think with this aspect of it, in terms of trans issues, there are a lot of facts that we can point to that show that this sort. Oops, I've just thrown my pen. Sorry. That this sort of. I think we can show that this sort of platforming doesn't do them very well. It doesn't contribute in a positive way. Having misinformation about this very particular minority of people who are up against so much every day. They really are up against so much. And even, like you say, from the experts in the field, from the medical doctors, even the medical doctors are split on this issue. Some simply go, they relegate it to a mental health issue. Some simply say this is a conversion tactic that we have to engage in. It's so hard. There's so much about it now. I think it's good that it's prevalent and it's being talked about. And another way, it leads to these sorts of talks that we're doing now, these sorts of discussions. Again, where neither of us are trans, so it's
Sure.
a really hard thing to talk about.
Informed discussions are certainly important.
Yes,
and
yes,
we probably aren't informed. That's fair.
We're not authorities. No.
I will say though, you said that like even the medical experts are split. I don't know if that's the case. But I don't know that it's not the case either.
I'm going from some medical practitioners I've seen over the last few months in the UK who have come out saying they were dismissed from practice because of their controversial views on dealing with gender dysphoria and so on. Saying they're split is probably not an accurate term. Probably somewhat fractured in some elements of medical practice would be a more accurate way of saying it, just to clarify. And again, they may be outliers. However, it just tapped into that thing you said where even experts will jump to their own conclusions based on different reasons or different reasoning or selective analysis of selective cases, shall we say. It's like what they say. It's like when they say, 100% of Muslims agree they're being victimized, and they'll interview and they'll only have Muslims from a very particular section of society that are being victimized because they've been denied a mosque, for example. The development of a mosque has fallen through. Let's interview these Muslims and feel how they feel and see how they feel. And then this becomes a case study of how Muslims feel in their society. 100% feel victimized. Well, it depends when you're asking and who you're. It's one of those things, right? It's one of those things that medical practitioners will take a study that may not be the best study to analyze.
Sure. Well, context matters. Being able to, analyze whatever the the sample size or you're including in the sample. There's
and that's where a lot of these trans issues come up, because they'll point to the cases where people may have regretted transitioning, but then within that group, they regretted transitioning because of so many other different reasons. But the person who disagrees with transitioning will look at the fact that they regret the transition and say, well, look, X regrets the transition. So there you go. There's my case. But then when you read the case, it was because of religious reasons, job, employment, etc. So many other reasons, right? There's 30 other reasons they'll raise, but they'll point to that aspect, that overall aspect, and say, X regrets it, therefore I'm against transitioning.
Yeah, but I mean that also just lends credence to the idea that anybody can take any study and make it mean anything.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it reduces. It reduces it to nothing. But And that's the most extreme instances. It's not
Sure.
the general. Yeah. But just to illustrate a point. Yeah.
Which is just another reason to err on the side of scientific consensus.
Yeah, exactly.
Group of people who are actually disciplined in the field and come to a
Yes.
conclusion
Yes.
via an informed method.
No one from the Westboro Baptist Church, put it that way.
You know what?
Just exclude those.
When it comes to information on the Bible, I would accept their expertise. They actually live it out to the letter.
Yeah, true. Yeah. No, in that aspect, I can't disagree.
But only when it comes to like, well, what's the Bible say about this? That's about the only thing I'd probably accept from
I don't even know if they're literalists or not. I don't even know if they're. I suppose they would be.
That was my understanding, that they were like the most extreme form of fundamentalism.
Yeah. Okay. It's
And
good to see that a couple of them got out.
Yes.
It's good. That's really amazing to see, and doing so much good as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's not just limited to the Westboro Baptist Church. There's
not at all
examples of it, but the one that immediately popped in my head was Leah Remini. From Scientology.
Yeah. That's one that I've thought about as well. Yeah.
But I don't know if that religion, I feel like air quotes were appropriate there. Yes. It is deserving of the same kind of vilification as well. I say that. Maybe it is as other religions.
Terrible practices within Scientology. Absolutely. Dehumanization, bad treatment, bullying. Oof. Yeah. It's, from what I've read, seen, and heard, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah. What's the there's slander and libel. Libel's written, right?
Libel is written, I believe. Yes.
Oh, good. Well, then hopefully I don't get sued for slander. But David Miscavige, definitely a murderer, and he definitely killed his wife.
Oh my God! Yeah, that whole situation. That whole situation. Wow. Now there's someone who's convinced of their position. You know, he really was able to carry that off, wasn't he?
Well,
it was very believable.
That is my thought. I don't have any evidence. I can't prove anything. But wow.
There's a knock on your door.
Wow, they got here quick.
Yeah, that was fast.
I'm still going to answer it saying, what took you guys so long?
Yeah. What's he doing now, Miscavige? Do you know?
Maybe they're still doing damage control on all the things Leah Remini was doing. I haven't heard anything from Scientology.
I haven't heard things for a long time.
Yeah. I haven't been seeking it out either.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I mean, maybe he's taking every play out of Joel Osteen's playbook that he possibly can. Because as soon as that hurricane hit and Joel Osteen's like, closing the doors of the church, it's like, no, we're flooded or whatever. And then they like,
what money? This money? What about it? Where does that come from? I don't know.
And then he finally opened the doors, like, okay, people can hide out here. And they're like, wow, it's boned up. And then he starts handing out the collection plate while people are huddling there for shelter from this hurricane that is destroying the city.
Grifter's got a grift.
Oh, and people still give money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he just projects that image. Success, hope. Trump. Very Trumpist.
Yeah. No, it's the whole prosperity gospel thing. I don't remember who the woman was that Trump tapped for his spiritual advisor, but cut from the same cloth that Osteen, Kenneth Copeland. I don't remember. There was like a George something. I think.
They made a really good rap song with her in it.
Oh, really?
Do you recall last year when she was making those proclamations on stage with the hand gestures? She was really going for it with the hand gestures, and someone cut that to a hardcore beat. It was really good. Someone did it to Copeland as well. They made a song with him blowing away the coronavirus.
Oh, yes. I definitely watched that one.
That one was good. That one was good too. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Kenneth Copeland. He's definitely aged gracefully.
You know what? When people say, when people say, what scares you? Because I watch a lot of horror movies. You know what scares me? His face. He's the scariest guy I've ever seen. Forget Freddy Krueger, forget Texas Chainsaw, forget Jason. Copeland is a scary looking guy. When he looks at you, when he looks at the camera, man, there's something going on there that I cannot explain. It's very unsettling.
Yeah, are you a fan of South Park at all?
No, I never really got into it. No, I tried. Yeah.
Oh,
I know it's funny, but I just haven't got into it.
There was a funny part where it's loosely related to this, that the boys go to a ski resort and somehow Butters ends up with shit on his face, like literal shit, but he doesn't know, and the ski instructor is like, in mid speech, he's like trying to teach the boys like to French fry instead of pizza. If you French fry when you're supposed to pizza, you're gonna have a bad time. And he's like, "Hey, little boy, you got some shit right here." And Butters goes, "That's just my face, sir." And you're sitting here talking about Kenneth Copeland. I can just imagine Kenneth Copeland going, "That's just my face."
Yep. Yep. That's all they can say. Yep. Oh boy.
Wow, we covered quite a range of topics.
Yeah. Look, I hope it's been pretty good. I'll have to jump off soon and pick my son up from work.
Oh, fair enough. It's 11 p.m. here. I'm pretty sure the rest of the household's already gone to bed. So
okay.
I better make sure that my dog's been let out and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, no problem. Was there anything else you wanted to ask or raise as a closing question?
I guess nothing comes to mind, but after 2.5 hours, this was just great fun. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, same. No, thanks for having me on. Thanks for the invite. You're very forthcoming and easy to deal with, so I definitely recommend any conversations with you in future. If you want to talk in future about a particular topic, then no problem. Just get in touch.
Great, excellent. No, that sounds like a plan. We'll have to. Hopefully, it's not like a nuclear holocaust that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Or something obscene like that.
Yeah, let's hope not. Let's hope not. Well, all the best for Christmas and the New Year as well. And
likewise, yeah. Hope you enjoy the holidays.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, you too. No, thanks for your time.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Yeah, take care.